has to be able to detect all of these failure modes, including the ones at high frequency. So we view this, along with our partners such as Verigy, as a key enabler for known good die and wafer level CSP applications. So how did we return this $200 million and increase the value of what we do? These are some slides stolen from the recent Verigy user group presentation, where the paper we co-authored with NVIDIA and Verigy, we're proud to say, was selected as the outstanding hardware paper. But you can see that essentially, conceptually, we essentially just cleaned up the overall interface between the probe card up through the 93K tester. And you can see, at least qualitatively, the results of that cleanup effort, essentially branded as direct probe, in the eye diagrams associated with the chip test here. So here's the sort of classical different pogo tower, and you can see the eye diagram is significantly cleaned up as we go to this direct probe scenario because of the higher frequencies and improved signal fidelity that's emitted through the signal chain, enabling the customer to detect this failure mode and not package up essentially bad die, or die that they would find to be bad later. So that's an example of how we're working with other people in the test supply chain, as well as key driver customers, to make sure that we're advancing and increasing the value associated with wafer test, taking it out of the pure cost center mode. If we shift our focus back to the cost side of the ledger, and take a look at what we're doing in collaborating with people on that front, this is a case study where we worked with an existing cantilever customer to help increase their parallelism. So they had a part that they were releasing into a very competitive consumer market space, and as a consequence, there was significant pressure on the test budget. To make a long story short, the existing 2-dot or by 2 cantilever configuration they were using was really not going to meet their cost targets. And this is an interesting case where it has benefited us to be in the cantilever space. This is an example where this is a microprobe card running in the cantilever space. Our applications guys, field service guys, and the customer, as you'll see on the next slide, were having increasing trouble getting it to work at the advanced pitches and process nodes that they were trying to run this chip on. So, given the applications experience we had from the cantilever card, we worked with them to deploy our new MEMS technology called MX Fine Pitch. You might ask, and it's a very good question to ask, well, why wouldn't you just build a by 8 cantilever card and increase the parallelism that way? It turns out that that is, at these aggressive pitches, a very, very difficult system to try and get high utilization from on the test floor. It turns out to be very difficult, and you'll see some examples of this on the next slide, to keep the cantilever card up and running and get high test cell utilization at the high pin counts and fine pitches associated with, for example, here, 8-dot testing. If we instead go to the MEMS card, the MX Fine Pitch, we're able to reduce the cost of tests significantly. And this is a combination, in essence, of two things happening. The first of which is upping the parallelism, which I think anybody in the wafer test business knows is not easy, is one of the obvious ways to try and reduce your costs. But it also is a result of a significant increase in overall uptime and therefore tester utilization. And these are not inexpensive testers, so it's significant that we can keep the uptime up at very high levels. So the result of that, in this particular case, more than 50% cost of test reduction in this case. And significant dollars associated with that in this high unit volume consumer SoC space. So again, sort of jumping to some of the details of how we did this and the real examples of the case study. So you can see here, and I apologize for the overlay, but 60 micron pad pitch. On the bottom row you see, and this is test vehicle pictures obviously, you see the existing cantilever card. and essentially the instabilities associated with trying to probe these kind of geometries with a cantilever card. It works for this kind of pitch and this kind of pad size, but as we continue to drive the pitches down and drive the pad size, the corresponding pad sizes down, you can imagine situations where you'd no longer be on the pad with this particular device. As a result, one of the things we did in deploying this was deploy our MX fine pitch technology, and you can see at least qualitatively the difference in the scrub marks. So we're able to land in a consistent way where we want to on the pad and have a very nice and consistent scrub mark. There's some other obvious benefits associated with the MEMS technology other than just the geometric fidelity. We're also able to address some of the challenges associated with very fragile low-K dielectrics and the back-end structures associated with that. So here's an example where we've helped people drive down the overall cost of what they're doing. In concert with the value example we showed you, we're trying to pull on both knobs associated with the return on investment. And that's summarized here, again back in the framework of our initial theme. We shared with you this improvement in the overall signal fidelity and frequency response, which allowed the customer to make sure they could call a bad die bad at wafer test, which after all is why we test at the wafer level. A direct increase in the overall value associated with the activity. On the cost side, we shared with you an example associated with driving a consumer SoC part down to fine pitches, advanced packaging technologies, and higher parallelism. In this case, by 8, but obviously roadmaps to by 16, by 32, by 64, to continue to ride down that cost curve. And when we're able to do that, we're all able to increase the ROI, increase our shareholder value, and hopefully increase our bonuses at the end of the year. So, thank you.